Let's turn our attentions to the stayers contest. Right. It will come up.
Thank you. Now this is the highlight of the day for me. I thought this was one of the best rides I think I've ever seen in terms of its all-round skill, start to end. And Gavin Lerena is clearly a name that we're going to get to know much better on the international scene over the next 5 years.
I just want to quickly, and I'll pass over the baton to you in a moment. This is Gavin Lerena, this is Arch Villain, who was a 25 to 1 shot and had previously not been ridden leading. He'd been sat just off them. He went out, Gavin Lerena, to the weighing room and said, look, I don't think there's going to be much pace on. Are you happy for me to lead? They've obviously looked at it and gone, well, something needs to happen to get this horse back on song. Yeah. Do what you want. He gets from a wide draw Arch Villain into the lead, perfect position, without using up too much energy. But what is beautiful, and we'll highlight it for you on this, is just the way he stacks them up, and you can see him just lift the reins up slightly, take a tug on the reins, and then go his pace. Two parts of the race that we'll touch on. Firstly, the thing you're about to see the start, but then later on the mid-race. The mid-race move of Kenichi Kazoa on Sea of Heaven, and the mid-race decision by Gavin Lerena not to panic when that move happens in front of him. It was brilliant on every level.
It really was, yeah. And this was not some favourite, remember. This was, as Ollie's just said, a 25 to 1 shot who appeared out of form. And has got the headgear on for good reason. The first thing we both noticed independently watching this race live was what lovely hands he had as he slid up on the outside there, and he immediately, it seems to me, has formed a communication with the horse. He's got the horse's mouth. You can see that the rein, it's a nice long rein, he has the horse relaxed, and he's basically in charge of the rider. He is basically pulling the strings from this point on, and the horse is a willing partner, and you could see that all the way through this race. It really was artistry, this ride.
Yeah, we won't see that move, sadly, where he just sort of stacked them up, but it was excellent because he's got to the lead. He's now dancing his own dance out in front. And then we move on to later on, where he has a decision to make, because Kenichi Kazoa and Sea of Heaven, we'll highlight them for you here. I mean, let's not make any bones about it. He said as well when he came back into the weighing room that the horse was pulling, he couldn't hold him, and he's pulled himself to the front. It means that then Gavin Lerena now has a decision as a rider. Do I let a horse who's clearly travelling too powerfully, admittedly, but powerfully, who is the pre-race favourite, etc., do I let him go on 4 or 5 lengths? Do I hope he comes back to me? Do I sit and carry on in this beautiful rhythm that I've established from the start? Or do I press forward? In the end, the decision that Lerena made was 100% the right decision, and that was not to panic and to let the horse just take himself fluently into the straight, which he'd worked so hard to get himself in a position to do.
Yeah, that's right. And to my eye, this is an example of a rider riding his horse to pace rather than to position. I think our domestic riders, perhaps understandably, because we have such an emphasis on riders appearing to try hard, which is a theme of British sport in general. I think that the punters want to see in this situation Lerena do something. They don't want him to do what actually won him the race, which is sit there and say, why hasn't he been more proactive? But the reason is he knows what he's doing. He knows that the best way to ride a horse is to let it run evenly until the closing stages.
A lot of people talked about Sea of Heaven, and we should just mention that. What did this tell you about Kenichi Kazoa, and what did this tell you about Sea of Heaven?
Well, the tempo of Japanese racing is, for the most part, very different to over here. Very large fields, very strong gallop. That is a generalisation, but he simply couldn't adapt to a hard-pulling horse in a staying race run at a British tempo, and he was man enough to admit afterwards that the horse had got the better of him, and that he'd basically just been carted through the race.
I want to highlight, if I can, Noble Silk just on the outside, because time and time again this horse gets flagged up in these 2-mile contests, particularly in Ascot, and lots of people side with him. I don't think he's won for some time now, and I think his recent record does not speak too favourably. I think it's something like 1 from 23 for Noble Silk of late, last few years. Once again, he's travelled quite powerfully. Yes, he's been posted wide, which isn't ideal, but last time in Ascot he was on the inside. He's found trouble. He was still beating a similar distance. This is a horse that at the moment is finding ways to get himself beat.
Well, here, Charnay on board him faced what Ron Atkinson used to call a crowd scene on the inside. There's no way for him to ride the type of race he'd like to ride, which is to split horses and to kid this old rascal. So he ended up showing Noble Silk way too much daylight, and it gives Noble Silk plenty of time to just reverse out of it, as he's fond of doing. But I don't think this is a horse you should forget, this great horse. I think this race did not go for him.
You're going to give him another chance?
I am, yeah. I'm fully aware of his past history of shirking it. But I think he's a well-handicapped animal. I think if he could slingshot between rivals, he can win a race.
This is arch villain on the inside. Lerena didn't panic. Sea of Heaven, who had pulled his way to the front, went down by a head.
I think one of the things about riding is that we can appreciate riding through not being riders simply because we can appreciate the physics of the whole thing, which is we know that smoothly does it every time. And it's important from a physical point of view for horses to run as evenly as possible, not to be jerked around and forced to run hard in various parts of the race. It's also important to go the smoothest way round, the shortest way round, sorry, which he did here. But the third skill, Ollie, and the thing that I think if I was a trainer or was an owner who had a retained jockey, I would put above all things, is the hands to settle horses. Horses pulling hard, you see, is a bad habit. And if you have a stable jockey with bad hands, he will give bad habits to all your horses, and that will limit their potential. You have a man like Lerena riding them. They learn to settle, they learn to listen, they learn to race evenly, and as a result they run bigger figures and they run faster times. And that's why I think this should be taken quite seriously, what he showed.
Okay, and actually, before we move on to this, we'll just leave the ratings up for you to see there, here on the verdict. Chris Cook in The Guardian has written a very interesting article about how Gavin Lerena has extended his stay here in the UK in the hope of getting rides at different tracks, at other tracks. He doesn't want this just to be a Shergar Cup visit. He wants this to be an experience outside of Ascot and other venues as well. And yet no British trainer, no English trainer has called on his services as yet. Now it's not too late. He may very well get opportunities later on in the week, but we're early Tuesday, the 3 days after the Shergar Cup. British trainers missing a trick if they let Gavin Lerena just enjoy a holiday without seeing a racecourse on their horse?
Well, I think they are, but it's not the short-term effect of Lerena that interests me. What interests me are major operations watching this. You see, the thing we saw with James McDonald was he had the supply of mounts from Godolphin to show what he could do. Giving him a few rides here and there this week is not really going to change the whole landscape of horse racing. But a major operation recruiting his services, as I think they should do. This guy's half an hour better than some people that have big jobs. He really is good. And I think horse racing sometimes it's slow to react, but they do get the right answer in the end. And I think he will make it. He will get a big job because there's enough intelligent people in the world to recognise this is not just a case of a rider stumbling into a couple of lucky winners, but someone who has made a horse, drawn badly, out of form, win a race through his actions, which is a repeatable skill and not randomness.
On the inside, Arkville fighting back, and Arkville, what a debut for Gavin Lerena, he's won it!
Truly amazing. Just to get on the horse's back was just amazing with the crowds and all the people, and to ride on this world-renowned course. It's truly amazing, and to finish it off with a win's even better.
Stealing the show, it's Jane Hill Kodiak under the South African champ that wins in a 1-2 for the rest of the world with Combative second.
It is, ladies and gentlemen, the rest of the world! Famous victory for the rest of the world. They take the Dubai Duty Free Shergar Cup.